Hey everybody, it's Jay here. So I thought I would just do a little quick video. Now, usually I never really do videos like this, but I thought I should do a video showing off my vinyls and my CDs. Now, yes, it's the end of the year, so I thought I would, show off my vinyl and record collection of 2021, and to just show all the records and CDs that I've gotten this past year. But anyway, before I get into it, make sure you give this video a thumbs up if you want to, you can, but be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. But anyway, let's get into it. So, the first album we got is Enema of the State, Blink-182. My all-time favorite albums. This is the album that got me into Blink. Now, sophomore year, this was the first album I got into. The first album that got me into punk rock was this album right here. It's been my favorite album ever since, and it always will be, So yeah. Next up, we got Green Day's Dookie. Now, this is my second favorite album. I started listening to Green Day around my late freshman year. They had some pretty catchy tracks. My favorite song off of this album would be She, Welcome to Paradise, and When I Come Around. This album really kicks off the pop punk genre, you know what I'm saying? Just like Enema of the State did, but this album caused a great explosion for pop punk in the 90s. Next up, we got the Runaways' debut album. Now, I love the Runaways. They're one of my favorite bands to involve females. Well, actually, one of my third favorite bands, This album is what got me into them. I love Cherie Curry's voice. I love her voice, Joan Jett, I covered one of her songs, but yeah, I'm talking about this album, I just love this album right here. The Runaways, just one of my favorite female-led bands. Next up, we got the Ramones' Rocket to Russia. Now, this has to be one of my favorite Ramones albums. My favorite songs on this track would be, Rockaway Beach, Sheena's a Punk Rocker, and Teenage Lobotomy. I know it sounds a little bit basic, but those are my favorite songs off of this album. This is one of my favorite 70s punk albums, I just love them. Next up, we got the Ramones' debut album. Now, this is the album, one of the albums that define the punk rock genre, I just love it, even though Rocket to Russia is just my favorite punk album, I just love this one too. But Rocket to Russia, just like I said, is one of my favorite punk albums. But, I just love their debut album, the Ramones, they're definitely one of the bands to define punk rock, and this album is another one that defined punk. Next up, we got Van Halen's Van Halen 1. Now, I could have got Van Halen 2, but anyway, I'm going to just talk about this album. This album, incredible, I love Eddie Van Halen, so I love his solos, I love the tapping technique. My favorite song off of this album would be Ain't Talking About Love, I Want to Feel Your Love Tonight, and which one would it be? Oh, and I'm the One, yeah. Those are my top 3 favorite songs off this album. This is one of my favorite hard rock albums, and Eddie, he's one of my guitar heroes, so I give credit for him to inspire me to play guitar and bass, so yeah. Next up, we got Permanent Vacation by Aerosmith. Now, this album is so underrated, in my opinion. This is one of Aerosmith's underrated albums, even though back in the 70s, Aerosmith had like the hard rock tone, but this one feels a little bit more glam metal, even though they seem like a hair band to begin with. But I feel like this album was, the one that started their hair metal era, My favorite track off of this album would be Dude Looks Like a Lady and Ragdoll. But yeah, this is one of my favorite Aerosmith albums. Next, we got Appetite for Destruction, Guns N' Roses. Now, I just love Slash, This is actually one of my favorite hard rock albums, One of my favorite albums. So yeah, I just love, the energy that is put on this album, all the, yeah, I just love it. My favorite track off of this album would be Paradise City, Sweet Child of Mine, and It's So Easy. Those are my top 3 tracks off of this album. Next up is Ramones, Road to Ruin. So, as much as I love the first 2 Ramones albums I got, this was actually one of the first albums I got, along with My Enema of the State. This is actually one of the first records I got. Even though this album, in my opinion, it's one. Well, I wouldn't say it's underrated, but yeah, one of the first records I got. My favorite track off of this album would be I'm Against It and I Want to Be Sedated. And yeah, those are my 2 tracks off of this album. Next up, we got Rolling Stones, Sticky Fingers. Now, I thought I should get, just go back. I think this was released in the 60s or 70s. Let me know when it was released. But yeah, the Rolling Stones, I love them, and that's why I got this album. My favorite track off of this album would be Can't You Hear Me Knockin'. Next up, we got Van Halen, 1984. Now, this is another one of my favorite albums, I just love, but sadly, this was the last album to feature David Lee Roth before this other guy named Sammy Hagar or someone like that replaced him. But most definitely, this is one of the most iconic albums in my opinion. This is just definitely one of the iconic 80s albums, but in my opinion, as usual, Eddie always kills it on the guitar. He always kills it, man. And yeah, and my favorite track off of this album would be Panama. What else? Yeah, Panama, Hot for Teacher, and Hot for Teacher. Oh, and Drop Dead Legs. Those would be my favorite tracks off of this album. So yeah, again, this is just one of my favorite 80s albums. And last but not least, we got Joan Jett, I Love Rock and Roll. Now, this, I just love Joan Jett in general, I love her guitar playing, she, and this is just one of my other favorite albums, by her. And, my favorite track on this album would be, of course, I Love Rock and Roll, Crimson and Clover, and Victim of Circumstance. And those would be my favorite tracks off of this album. And now I'm gonna get into my CD collection now. I got a couple CDs for Christmas this year, but I'm gonna show them to you. First off, we got Blink-182's Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. Now, this is another one of the albums that got me into Blink. So, the First Date music video is what got me into Blink in the first place, and it was very catchy. Now, my favorite track off of this album would be First Date and Every Time I Look for You. Next up, we got Green Day's American Idiot. Now, in my opinion, this album sounds a little more punk than Dookie. I just love, the opera, and stuff. It's a punk opera, but just like I said, it sounds way more punk than Dookie. I love the concept, the storyline. It has a really great storyline, and, this is just definitely one of my favorite albums, along with Dookie. One of my favorites. My favorite tracks off of this album would be the title track, Jesus of Suburbia, and Letter Bomb. Those would be my top 3 off of this album. Next up, we got Joan Jett's Bad Reputation. Definitely a good one to listen to. For those who, dude, if you haven't listened to this album, go listen to it. It's really good. I just love this album, This is definitely one of the albums that started off Joan Jett's solo career. You guys know how much I love Joan Jett. But yeah, definitely check out this album because this album is the bomb. My favorite track off of this album would be Bad Reputation, and You Don't Know What You Got. The title track is my favorite off of this album. And also, yeah, those are my top 2 off of this album. Next, we got Motley Crue's Girls, Girls, Girls. Now, in my opinion, this album, I feel like this is one of their underrated albums, in my opinion. You know, this album deserves a little bit more attention, and yeah, but I wouldn't say it's I wouldn't necessarily say it's underrated, but like they have some pretty good tracks on here. They're as usual, even though I'm a Motley Crue fan, most of the Motley Crue songs are really catchy, So I'm not gonna say it's underrated, I take that back, but yeah. Definitely another one of my favorite Motley Crue albums, but my most favorite Motley Crue album would be Shout at the Devil, but this would be my second Motley Crue album. My favorite track off this album would be Wild Side, 5 Years Dead, and Dancing on Glass. And last but not least, we got Poison, Look What the Cat Dragged In. Now, this is definitely one of the biggest hair metal albums in history. One of my favorite hair metal albums, you guys know that my favorite hair bands would be Van Halen, Motley Crue, Kiss, and of course, and Poison. I love Poison. I love Brett's voice. CC DeVille, he kills it on his guitar. This is just one of my favorite hair metal albums. My favorite tracks off of this album would be I Want Action, Talk Dirty to Me, and I Won't Forget You. So yeah, this is just one of my favorite hair metal albums. But yeah, guys, that is my record and CD collection. Now, let me know which one of those is your favorite album, and just leave it in the comments, or let me know which one of those are your favorite albums, and maybe one day I'll do a cover off of there. I'll cover a song off of one of those albums one day. But yeah, that's my record and CD collection. Now, just like I said, you guys, if you want, you can give this video a big thumbs up, and subscribe to this channel, Jay Winslet, and keep out on the lookout for more covers. I'm gonna try to get more covers out during 2022. But yeah, guys, I really appreciate the support and the time and effort I put in these videos. Yeah. So yeah, that is my record and CD collection. So I will see you guys next time. Peace out.